Welcome back, everyone. It is week 7 of From the Stands College Football Show. My name is Brian McCardle. Joining me again for the 7th time, lucky number 7, it is Andy Hopper and Tom Scavetta. Tom, we'll start with you because Andy's got a big game on the slate, so we'll go to him last. How's your week been?
It's going good. My pro team's 4-1, and the Notre Dame team beat BYU Saturday night. Drew Pine improves to 3-0 as the starting quarterback. So I'm doing very well, Brian. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. If you will remember, you're going to have to give me brownie points. I did pick Notre Dame in that game. I had your back there. Andy, huge game for Illinois on the slate. How are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling great. I'm drinking all of the orange Kool-Aid. Number 24, baby. They're ranked for the first time since 2011. The buzz in Champaign-Urbana is palpable, folks. Homecoming week, ranked matchup against Minnesota. Oh, actually, is Minnesota ranked? No?
Nah, not right now, but
Okay,
they should be.
They were to start the year. They're a very good team. This is going to be an awesome game. The Illini defense has been absolutely incredible to start the year. Offense has been all right. Some would argue could be better. We do have the number one rusher in the country. No big deal there, except for the fact that it is. But, Brian, I'm feeling great. We have a ton of ranked matchups this weekend to go over, not just my Illini, but I am glad that they finally made the shots and chasers. A little hat tip to you, my friend.
We do. There's a ton of big games on the slate. Probably, I mean, definitely this season the biggest so far. We'll jump quickly into a weekly recap. Tom, start with you. What was your highlight of last week?
I mean, outside of Notre Dame beating BYU, I think UCLA's win over Utah was very impressive at home. Uh, Thomas Robinson with the 4 touchdowns and Zach Charbonnet continuing to pound the rock, 198 rushing yards. And then again, I understand Will Levis wasn't playing, but South Carolina upsetting Kentucky on the road. I get it. You're going up against the backup quarterback, but you held that offense to 14 points. Very impressive SEC win for the Cox.
What about you, Andy? Anything to top the Cox?
Um, I think there were a few good games this past week. I like that Tom mentioned what was the first game you said? Fuck.
UCLA, Utah.
Yes, because I have bet against UCLA like 3 or 4 times now, and they have come back to bite me in the ass every time. I'll give my props to UCLA. Finally, it only takes me losing a bunch of money for me to finally realize that they might be legit. A couple other games, obviously Illinois over Iowa, 9-6. I was in person at the game, absolutely electric crowd. I had about 6 fireball shots and probably just as many beers. We were feeling it from the stands. No touchdowns scored, field goal battle, 9-6. Classic Big Ten game. Spencer Petras is as advertised, guys. Fucking Garbo. Garbo, Garbo, Garbo. Other than that, TCU going on the road, taking out Kansas. It's a game we talked about. It's a game we previewed. TCU 38, Kansas 31. I know Jalen Daniels did miss some time in that game going out with an injury. I think his status is kind of unknown at the moment, but Max Duggan, 308 yards and 3 touchdowns, did throw 1 interception, had a 55 yards on the ground as well. Watch out for the Horned Frogs in the Big 12. And then other than that, Tennessee just absolutely beating the brakes off of LSU, 40-13. That game was never close. And one, I'm going to put my hand up here, fellas. Hand up. I was wrong about something. I know we're all shocked. Texas A&M hanging with Alabama. I said on this show it was not going to be close. Alabama was going to boat race them, and that wasn't the case. Backup quarterback for Bama kind of struggled a little bit. Milroe, I think that's how you say it. Only 111 yards, 3 touchdowns, not so bad. Did have an interception. And there might be some quarterback controversies. The third-string quarterback at Bama apparently liking tweets that saying he should be playing for Milroe. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what I think Bryce Young's status still up in the air for this week. So we will see what Saban wants to do coming up with a big matchup against Tennessee. But great weekend of football. last week. I mean, I'll say that every weekend there is football on because every weekend there is football. It's a great weekend, boys. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, the Milrow performance was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be from the when I talked up my spring ball action that I was watching. The kid has a ton of talent, but he was just trying to do like that ridiculous Johnny Manziel type stuff. Uh-oh.
Sack, we're good. We
Okay.
almost got him.
He was trying to make himself a little bit of like a Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M type of thing, just making plays when they're not there, and that's not something you should be doing when you're the backup and you're playing a big game like that. So yeah, I mean they did survive the game, so that's all that really matters, I guess. One that hasn't been mentioned yet: Texas over Oklahoma. Obviously, both teams not ranked in that matchup. We talked about that last week, but 49-0. Oh, that looks really bad. Brent Venables' seat's probably getting a little bit warm. I know it's still very, very early, but that's just embarrassing. And I do want to kind of apologize to Texas because they are two completely different teams with and without Ewers. So I've talked about how I hate rankings plenty of times, but I think this is a perfect scenario where if Texas, I mean, they're not natty bound by any means, but if Texas gets, to the end of the season with 2 losses, I think the committee absolutely needs to address the fact that, Ewers' injury was sort of the reason why these two teams are so different looking with and without him. And, they could be New Year's Six bound for sure. And like you said, Andy, the TCU Kansas game, really wanted Kansas to pull that one out. Obviously, Jalen Daniels got injured, but the backup just came in and was absolutely slinging it. That was hell of a game, hell of a game. I mean, classic Big 12 action, and someone had to win. TCU looked really good. Wish Kansas had won it, but TCU is on the slot again this week in our Shots and Chasers because they pulled it off, and up the rankings they go. So we'll move into our first segment of the week. Black Hawk Eye down. Slight play on words there, folks. As the Bears do
Go, huh?
All
to
right.
the end zone.
60-yard run, really close. Khalil Herbert just got to like the 7. All right.
That's the live action we love here. If it's for the Bears, if it's for the other team, not so much.
Yeah, he just went from his own 30 to the opposing like 7-yard line.
But yeah,
Awesome.
we're gonna talk quickly about Iowa. They are just in complete disarray here. I really don't know what to say about this, but basically three situations that don't look so good for the program. Obviously, offense sputtering, non-existent. They have a little bit of a scenario where a lawsuit is being filed against the coaches for racism, and they have tried to put this off until the season was over. Last season, judge said okay. Now they're not. The Ferentz family is not going to the depositions yet again, and then just Brian Ferentz having some terrible media day interviews about his quarterback situation. So, Tom, we'll start with you. I was typically, pretty low key Midwest team here, and they just seem to be falling apart at the seams. What are your thoughts on how backwards this program seems to be going?
Well, yeah, I mean, I watched that clip of the interview, the downside of Alex Padilla over Spencer Petras, and then the coach goes, "What would the upside be?" I mean, I thought that was a clown answer for a clown football team right now. Again, it is spooky season, but Kirk Ferentz might be spooking himself on his way out. He's been the head coach of Iowa since I think 1998.
Long time.
Eventually something has to give, right? Eventually there needs to be a change. If your team is, again, a 500 football team right now, they're 3-3, 1-2 in the Big Ten. Kirk Ferentz refusing to hear depositions. I understand if you want to back yourself in your argument, but I mean, I feel like you have to at least appear, no, and you have to make your case regardless of what is being said is true or not. I don't like to get involved in the politics aspect of it, but I think Brian refusing to step down, Kirk refused. It seems like there's a little bit of clinginess going on with Iowa that something has to give here. and the Ferenc family might, their time in Iowa, their days might be numbered because right now they have all sorts of issues. They can't keep relying on their run game and defense to win games, and it seems like that's the recipe every year. And I think last year at one point they were ranked number 2 in the nation. Boy, was that like an absolute joke. But yeah, that's really all I have to say on that issue. It's like, what the hell is going on out in Iowa?
Yeah, Andy, what's your take? They're kind of up by you.
Yeah, so I mean, I literally just saw him play last weekend. The only reason that Brian Ferentz has a job is because his dad is Kirk Ferentz. This guy is not a good offensive coordinator. I mean, when was the last time Iowa had an offense that you were fucking scared of? It's been quite a few years of this. Well, as long as Petrus has been the quarterback. I mean, what's the upside of going to Padilla? I don't know. Maybe somebody that can complete a screen pass? Guys, I don't even know how many times. It wasn't just him missing throws on Saturday. It's him throwing screen passes from 3 yards away that are at people's feet. I've never seen anything like it. I'm an Illinois football fan. I am a Bears football fan. I know all about having fucking a mediocre quarterback, okay? But this is just a whole new level. And the stubbornness, the cockiness, just, always thinking you're right. I don't know what it is. Just, it may be, Kirk Ferentz. I've been here since '98, or he's one of the longest tenured head coaches in college football, if not the longest. It's sometimes these guys are control freaks. Sometimes it's, my way or the highway. It is his program at the end of the day. He does get to call the shots. But if you look at other programs, not just around the country, but in the Big Ten, I believe Nebraska fired their offensive coordinator. Obviously, they fired their head coach. Wisconsin fired their OC, I think. I mean, all these other places around the country are making moves, and their offenses have performed better than Iowa's. And they're just absolutely content with just holding pat. Obviously, they have been a pretty successful program. I mean, they have more wins without scoring a touchdown than I think the rest of the country combined over the past however many years. So they know how to win these ugly football games. They were ranked second last year. Credit to their defense. I mean, like I said, the offense just doesn't scare you. The defense still is pretty damn solid this year. I don't think to the level that we've seen some of these Iowa defenses, but just an absolute clown show going on in Iowa right now. I mean, it's absolute it's nepotism that is the reason that Brian Ferentz still has a job. It is absolute nepotism, and the what's the upside comment was just absolute clown show. I think Tom said it earlier. It's just one. It doesn't make it just makes you look bad. What is Padilla, the backup? He's gonna see that clip and be like, okay,
Right.
what the fuck? Like what? Like what? By the way, he is better than Petrus. He absolutely is better than Petrus. I would take just about anybody in the country over Petrus. I want Tom starting before I take Petrus. Jesus Christ. But yeah, dude, I don't know. I obviously I dislike Iowa. I definitely have a bias against them, but it's just it's a head scratcher the way things are being ran right now.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about what you brought up about the other coaches being fired is both of those are Northwestern teams from the Big Ten. So this isn't like a new thing for them where, you know, you don't have boosters on your ass all the time. You don't have fans of a big program on your ass all the time. And I don't know. It's maybe the weirdest thing ever because their defense is so good almost every single year, but the offense is god awful year in and year out. And I mean, I don't think I need to expand on Petrus at all. You kind of said pretty much what I think is on most people's minds about him.
I've never seen anything like that. I have never seen a quarterback miss so many throws that weren't just inaccuracy and just a little bit off. He was throwing the ball at all of his. I mean, it was like he wanted them to kick it. I don't know. They don't catch with their feet. They catch with their hands.
Yeah, I mean, you got to witness it firsthand, so I'm kind of happy and sad for you because you had to witness that awful QB play. But
Well, they won.
yeah, exactly. You got the win, so that's all that matters. But yeah, as far as friends, the interview was just so disrespectful. I don't like you said. I don't know how. If I'm Alex Padilla, I wouldn't ever want to play for him ever again. Like, I'm instantly entering the transfer portal at that point because he basically on. I mean, not national television, but everyone's seen it at this point. Said, "Yeah, Padilla is shit. So why would I put him in?" And it was just an interesting comment because Spencer Petras is quite literally, as they showed at the end of that clip, dead last in QB efficiency in the entire nation. So just completely awful there. And then just some stats. I had to look up how bad they actually are. They've only scored more than 14 points one time this season. That's like some late 90s NFL type scoreline offense right there. And then the most interesting to me is points that they've scored when they've started from their own territory. So drives where they've had to go at least 50.1 yards to actually get a score. 6.16 points per game. So less than a touchdown per game on offense, which is just god awful. They're 120th in passing. There's only 11 teams worse than them. 4 of those teams run the triple option, and every other team below them, with the exception of Boise State, is a team that you usually expect to be one of the worst in the nation. So, just god awful situation that's going on there. France has done great things, but I think they need to get rid of both of them at this point. I don't know why the boosters aren't on their ass to do it, but they really need to because the program is just it is suffering. You can't rely on the backs of your defense to do everything for you if you want to succeed as a program. So. Unfortunate situation there for their fans, but fortunate for teams like Illinois who can steal wins off of them and make it into their rankings. We'll move into our next segment, Upset Alert. We're going to do a quick pick here. A lot of these games are on our board for games to watch of the week. Biggest week of games so far this season. A lot of ranked matchups, a lot of top 10 ranked matchups. Playoff is on the line here, boys. So I want to know who is on your card for highest upset alert here of these 4 matchups. We have Alabama versus Tennessee, Michigan versus Penn State, Oklahoma State versus TCU, and Southern Cal versus Utah. Tom, we'll start with you. Who's on the highest upset alert this week?
Well, Michigan historically has a lot of success against Penn State, so I'm not picking them. USC, Utah, I'm going to avoid that game specifically. I'm going with Oklahoma State. I really like TCU at home. They are favored by 4 points. I think Max Duggan is a little bit better than Spencer Petras. God, if your name's Spencer, tonight's not your night. I'm sorry. Spencer Sanders. Oh, man. How do I recover from that one? Anyway, TCU destroyed Oklahoma. They just beat Kansas on the road. They averaged 530 total yards of offense. How could you not pick them in this game? I mean, that's my question to you both. Like, what has Oklahoma State done on the road so far this season to convince you that they could beat a ranked opponent of this caliber? Now, Spencer Sanders has proved us wrong in the past, but can he do it on the road against this caliber of a Big 12 team this year? The Horned Frogs are for real. Like, they're for real as in entering their names into the college football playoff discussion, especially if they win this game, because right now they look really good. I do think Bama could be on upset alert this week as well, but I'm a little bit more confident in Oklahoma State losing than them.
All right, Andy, who's your pick?
Yeah, I think Tom nailed it as far as if you look at the 4 underdogs in these matchups, the one that really jumps out is TCU. And it's been, I feel like out of this group, they have been the most impressive. I want to pick Tennessee to beat Bama because, I mean, who doesn't love, watching Bama lose? But I believe, like, the public is just all over Tennessee as far as bets goes. I do think Bama is 7-point favorites, maybe up to 7.5. I do think Tennessee could cover that game at home, especially if there still is the uncertainty of that. But you know what they say, you don't get rich betting against Bama. I feel like this is a weird spot for USC Utah. I know Utah just got handled by UCLA last week, but this just feels like a game that they get up for. And it feels like a game that they are able to steal. They always seem to do this. I know, speaking as somebody that has a place in my heart for the Oregon Ducks, it always feels like Utah gives them a hard time, especially when they have to go down and play on the road there. So I'm going to go Utah over USC. I think USC is on upset alert this weekend.
All right. And, I thought no one was going to pick Utah, so I was thinking about going with them. I'm very torn here. I mean, I'll start off with the obvious one, Alabama, Tennessee. For me, Tennessee looks really, really good. But the stat line that isn't really a stat line for me here is that Alabama has beaten them the last 15 times. It is to the point where when you have someone's number that good, it's in every single one of those players' heads going into this game. Like, you can say, yeah, so-and-so, doesn't get nervous. They all know that stat. These teams hate each other, and every single Tennessee player knows that they haven't won this game in over 15 years. So that's going to be in the back of their heads, even if they have a lead during this game. And I think since 2015, every single win from Alabama has been by at least 2 scores. 2014 or 15 was the last time Tennessee kept it close. I think it was like 19-14. Still couldn't pull off the win, though. Michigan, Penn State. Penn State has been one of those weird ones because they've kind of been not really on, at least my radar. I don't know about you guys, but we haven't had them on any of the cards. They've just been kind of a sleeper team there as far as the ranking goes. But I don't know. Michigan's been looking really good. I mean, Tom talks about them every time we have Michigan on the show. Corum is just an absolute animal at running back for them, and McCarthy has settled in there. So that one's. I still think Michigan takes that one. As far as the two, that it's kind of even for me. Oklahoma State, TCU, Southern Cal, Utah. Utah got absolutely torched by Thompson Robinson and Charbonnet last week. It didn't look good. If they had kept that score a little lower, I think Utah would have been my obvious pick here. But TCU also poured it on to Kansas. I don't know. I think Oklahoma State's defense is much better than Kansas's, and they'll be able to keep that under wraps more. And Sanders has been not Petrus, everyone. Spencer Sanders has been able to do enough for Oklahoma State. So I think they do pull off the win there against TCU. And I'm going to take Utah here, which is surprising because all the stats I have for this game coming up on our card would make it seem like I would pick Southern Cal. But I still think Utah's defense is good enough. This is at Utah. They got that thin air. So I don't know if our California boys are going to be able to breathe up there with that defense breathing down their neck. So I'm picking the Utes as well. And like I said, that will move us into our shots and chasers, the games of the week. A lot of those games look familiar. It's because there's a lot of top matchups this week. We'll start with our new matchup, Michigan versus Penn State. Tom, who's your pick in this one?
So the Wolverines are favored by 7. You both know who I want to win this football game, correct? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So anyway, history is on Michigan's side here, right? Blake Corum has 11 rushing touchdowns. That's among the nation's leaders. In fact, it might even lead the nation. 735 yards on the year. J.J. McCarthy, huge upgrade over Cade McNamara. Ronnie Bell, really good receiver for them, in addition to tight end Luke Schoonmaker, who I think is a very versatile weapon for them over the middle of the field. How is Penn State going to cover that? And why haven't we talked about Penn State, Brian? Well, who have they played? They beat Northwestern by 10 points, and Northwestern hasn't been too great this year, at least to my knowledge. So, I mean, why would I pick Penn State in this game? I get it. Sean Clifford has improved, but is a 17-7 win at home against Northwestern really going to convince me? Absolutely not. Now, I do think they have a few weapons, though, to look out for. Tight end Brenton Strange has 4 touchdowns on the season. That's a player that I really like to watch in this game. If there's one soft spot with Michigan's defense, it is over the middle of the field as well. Both teams have a soft spot in that department. And let's keep this in mind. Penn State's defense, again, you can only play who's on your schedule. They've given up 14 points in 4 of the 5 games they've played this year. Keep that in mind as well, despite my pick being Michigan for this one. I think Penn State will keep it close. That spread by 7, I think, is fair, but I would not be surprised if Penn State keeps it a little bit closer than that.
All right, Andy. Andy, you're on mute there.
Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, I think this game is interesting for me. Because I mean, you can talk about Michigan's just absolute cupcake of a non-conference schedule as well, playing 3 of the worst teams in the FBS in Colorado State, UConn, and Hawaii. They've gotten into their Big Ten slate. They kind of let Indiana hang around a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I do think they win this game, though. I do like the Penn State defense. I think Joey Porter Jr. has been incredible for them in the secondary so far this year as far as Penn State. Tom, you are right. I think Sean Clifford has taken a step forward this season, and God, I would hope so, because it feels like he's been there for 100 years. So I think this will be closer. I think Penn State covers the spread, but I think Michigan squeaks out a close win here.
Yeah, this for me is one of those ones where I think the home team wins it, and this is in Michigan, so I'm gonna give them the edge here. I love to shit on Michigan, but McCarthy has looked just really good. Corum has looked absolutely phenomenal. There aren't many hitches to their play right now, so I mean, I would love to deep dive in and pick one out and say, oh, Penn State can exploit this, but they actually do look really good this year. It's going to be Corum versus Penn State's run defense, I think, is going to be the big story here. Tom, I think you mentioned it earlier. Corum's already over 500 yards for the year, nearly 6 yards per carry, and he's got 4 touchdowns in three of those Big Ten games so far. He's third in the FBS with 735 total yards and 11 scores. And Penn State on the other side of the ball, though, only giving up 79.6 yards on the ground. So that's going to be a big battle. If Corum can get loose and can get past those big boys on the front line and get a few big runs in, open up the passing game for McCarthy, I think Penn State could be in trouble here. But yeah, my player to watch also, Andy, was Joey Porter Jr. here. Obviously, son of an NFL player, that usually helps with your prep and your training. But he was named the Big Ten top defensive player for the midseason by the Associated Press, and he's second nationally with 10 pass breakups. So, they probably won't be throwing to him with a stat line like that. So you got to rely on your other guys, but it always helps to have someone who's good enough to where the quarterback is specifically trying to avoid you and narrow those options down. Andy, I know you were waiting for this one. Our chaser for the noon slot, we have ranked Illinois taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. We'll go to you last on this one because I'm sure you have a lot to say on this one. Tom, who's your pick here?
So Minnesota's favored by 6.5 on the road. I think that's a stretch. Tommy DeVito's looked crisper of the 2 quarterbacks this year. Illinois, that 9-6 victory off Iowa, again, it's impressive, but how impressive is it? Is it Illinois being really – I mean, Andy was there. He could probably attest for that. Each defense is elite. They're only giving up 8 points per game. I'm a huge Brett Bielema guy, granted, because he was the Giants' outside linebackers coach and then got hired before the 2020 season even ended to coach Illinois. So I think that's huge for them. The challenge for the Fighting Illini in this game is Mohamed Ibrahim. 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. Are they going to be able to stop the run? That's the problem. But you could ask the same thing for the Golden Gophers. Who's stopping Chase Brown on the ground? I'm not so sure. The dude literally has almost 900 rushing yards in 5 games with 4 touchdowns. How is this offensive line going to match up against hogs like Keith Randolph Jr., 4 sacks on the season? Dude's a mammoth. I'm picking the Fighting Illini to pull off the upset. at home, improving to 6-1 on the season. Sorry, Minnesota fans, I couldn't give you a skull on that one.
I like it. Yeah, this is such an interesting matchup. I get vibes of like the 2009 LSU Alabama matchup here, where you have two incredible rushers against two incredible rush defenses here. Yeah, Ibrahim and Chase Brown, it's gonna be an absolute battle. Two top rushers in the country going against two defenses that allow less than 85 yards per game on the ground. Minnesota, though, far and away, they're the best third down team on both sides of the ball in the nation. I found that really interesting. In terms of converting third downs, they convert over 70% of their third downs on offense. The next closest team behind them is Ohio State, who only converts 58% of the time. So, I mean, if you've got that much of a gap on who might be the first, second ranked team, however you want to rank them in the country, in your third down conversions, you're doing pretty well there. Golden Gophers have the second best passing defense in the nation as well, which doesn't bode well for Illinois' 100th ranked passing offense. So Illinois is going to need to lead very, very heavily on Chase Brown. Ball security, big concern for Illinois, second worst in the country in fumbles with 9 fumbles lost. A lot of negatives there, but you know what? It doesn't matter, because I'm ride or die this week with our boy Andy here and Illinois. I do think Minnesota is a quality team that should be ranked. They're really good. Ibrahim is an absolute animal. But you know what? Chase Brown's an animal. You got Tommy DeVito in the transfer portal. Your defense is amazing. You just pulled off a 9-6 trenches win against Iowa. So I'm riding with the Illini here. And Andy, we'll get to you because I know you've been waiting to cover this game. I think I know who you're going to pick, but who are you taking here?
I could kiss both of you right now for riding with me. I appreciate the kind words. I do. All right. We might not see Tommy DeVito in this game. He hurt his ankle last week. That is part of the reason they only scored 9 points. Or at least I'm telling myself that's part of the reason they only scored 9 points, because he left the game early. They go to backup Art Satowski, and you could just tell by the play calling they really do not have as much confidence in him as they do in DeVito. I believe at one point he had completed 10 passes and only had like 16 yards or like 20 yards or something like that. It was rough. So if they open up the playbook a little bit more, maybe with a week of practice with Art with the ones, they're going to be more comfortable with him in that position. But I mean, for me, you guys really hit this. You have the number 1 rusher in the nation going up against the number 3 rusher in the nation, I believe, in Chase Brown and Muhammad Ibrahim. Ibrahim coming off an ankle injury, he is probable. On the Illini side of the ball, as far as injuries go, you have DeVito, who is now probable with an ankle injury, so we are expecting to see him. Bielema hasn't been super, he hasn't been trying to reveal too much about that. Isaiah Williams also left the game. He's our number 1 receiver. I think he's questionable for the game. Might not see him. A guy we are hoping returns this week. If not this week, it'll be after the bye coming up after this game, is Josh McCray, who also helps out a ton in the running game, a really, really, really solid number 2 to Chase Brown in the backfield. But Brian, I like what you brought up as far as the third downs, the 70%. Illinois has to get stops on third down. They're only allowing a conversion on third down on, I believe, 28% of third downs this year. They've been incredible in the run game. They've been great at getting to the quarterback as far as pressure goes. Tom brought up Keith Randall's 4 sacks, Randolph's 4 sacks. Also look out for Johnny Newton. He's been an absolute menace with over 20 quarterback pressures so far on the season. But, I mean, if Illinois can limit the big plays, because that is the one thing that has hurt them so far this season, is big plays. But they have been, I mean, Ryan Walters is incredible as the defensive coordinator. If DeVito plays, I believe they have a way better chance of winning this game. I'm picking them regardless. They're covering the spread. It's homecoming. They're going for a sellout. I think the crowd's going to get pretty rowdy. The student section has been incredible so far this year, but they're going to have to step up. Minnesota is no joke. They are a good team. They are, I would put, Illinois, Minnesota is the two best teams currently in the Big Ten West. So you're going to have to show up. This is for bowl eligibility. This is a huge game. I think Bielema takes it. I think Illinois takes it. They're taking down PJ Flex. He sucks, by the way. He is awful. He makes one of those college head coaches that makes everything about themselves and not about the guys actually playing the game. But Illinois has to take care of the ball as well. Brian, you brought up the 9 fumbles. They've been turnover prone, but the defense has just been out of their mind. I believe the number 1 scoring defense in the country, but so is Minnesota's. They're both only giving up like 8 points a game, like Tom said. I think we're going to see a lot of running the ball. I mean, this could be another field goal game, folks. We'll see. I know Minnesota's offense has been averaging over 30 points a game, so it's going to be quite harder to stop than the Iowa offense we just saw Illinois go up against last week. But I'm still riding with the Illini. I think they inch out a close win here at home for homecoming. And then Ludacris in Champaign after homecoming concert.
Really?
He's originally from Urbana. Lived in Urbana before moving down to Atlanta as a kid. So he's doing a concert here at the State Farm Center where they play basketball. So big day, big Saturday. Also, shout out to my friends Greg and Lexi. They're getting married on Saturday. I'll be at that wedding.
Oh, congratulations, Greg and Lexi. And I'll tell you what, a Ludacris concert is worth at least 2 points on the spread there in Illinois' favor. Then moving on to our 3:30, we have Tennessee taking on one of their most hated rivals in Alabama. Tom, we'll start with you. Can they get the monkey off their back and beat Alabama for the first time in 16 years?
So can I ask this question? Do we know the status of Bryce Young? Is he going to play?
Still questionable, it looks like.
It looks like it?
I said still questionable, it looks like.
Oh, okay. So Brian mentioned this earlier tonight. The Vols have a 15-game skid against Alabama. Bama's favored by 7. Both teams are undefeated. The Vols are at home. Trayshawn Holden and Ja'Cory Brooks have combined for 7 touchdowns on the year. The Vols secondary has their work cut out for them. Will Anderson Jr., best defender in the country right now, in my opinion. But Hendon Hooker has been near perfect this year with the football. He's been outstanding. Jabari Small, 6 rushing TDs. Jalen Hyatt, 5 touchdowns. They have 4 receivers, the Vols do, with over 200 yards. I think Kamal Haddon and Trayvon Flowers can challenge these Bama receivers enough to make this a very close, competitive contest. They're easily covering the spread. Bama has looked pedestrian on the road this year, especially in that Texas game. Each of those corners I just mentioned have 2 interceptions, and in the trenches that's led by a veteran and Byron Young. Look out. The Tennessee Volunteers will upset the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Ooh, folks, you heard it here first. Tennessee finally getting the win. Andy, you agree with all that spice?
I think it's definitely a possibility. I bet Saban is going to hold out this decision on Bryce Young until the last possible second. I mean, he very well could be playing, but why would he give that up and give Tennessee, more time to prepare for him? If Milroe starts this game, Tennessee wins. This is the number 2 offense in the country, averaging 520 plus yards a game. You are going up against a really, really solid Alabama defense here. Like Tom mentioned, Will Anderson Jr., likely a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. They're only giving up about 250 yards of total offense a game. So it is really it's a huge matchup as far as offense versus defense. We'll see if Tennessee can get going. Offensive coordinator Alex Galesh, former Illinois assistant coach, actually lived down the street from my parents when they lived in town, and my sister babysat his children. No matter. Tennessee, I'm going with them. They're upsetting the Crimson Tide. I know the public is all over Tennessee, but I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, especially if Bryce Young is out. If Bryce Young plays, Alabama wins. If he's out, Tennessee wins.
Yeah,
that's my pick.
I think we had a game like this. I can't remember which game it was a few weeks ago where a quarterback was questionable and we couldn't figure it out. So we were all on the side of if he plays, they win. If not, he loses. And yeah, it is kind of similar here with this situation. Um, yeah, Milrow, he's got so much talent, but he looks so bad, and it was so questionable the performance last week. But Jahmyr Gibbs stepped up. I called out his performance 2 weeks ago. Again, they gave him the ball more than 15 times for the second time of the season, so he's finally getting the ball in those 2 games where he's actually gotten the rock. 18 carries for 206 yards, and then this week against Texas A&M, he went for 21 carries and 154 yards. So a little bit worse, but Texas A&M's defense is still pretty good. So it's a quality performance for him to step up when Bryce Young is out and maybe out again this week. Something that was noted to me that I think is this game's going to be a lot uglier than a lot of people maybe expect. Yes, they're rivals, but on top of that, both these teams are in the bottom 15 in penalties per game. So as much as, the talent's going to be out there and they're going to be making some beautiful highlight plays out there, it could get ugly in terms of, the referees throwing a bunch of dirty yellow laundry out there on the field. Alabama averaging 8.17 penalties per game, and Tennessee even worse at 8.4 penalties. I don't know how Saban's putting up with that this year. He's typically on their ass if they do that one game. It's been 6 games now, and they're one of the worst teams in the entire nation in penalties. So I would love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations for the post game yelling. Alabama has yielded just 9 sacks all season. If Bryce Young doesn't play, that's going to be the one thing that maybe saves them here, because Milrow didn't look great in the pocket. He's scrambling too early, making odd decisions on when to throw. So the O-line will be there to save him a little bit if Young isn't there. But yeah, I'm with Andy on this one. If Bryce Young plays, Alabama wins this. If Milrow's in there, I think Tennessee gets, maybe one of the biggest wins in their program history, at least past, decade to 15 years here. Yeah, if Young plays, Alabama wins it. If not, I'm going Tennessee. And then our chaser for the 3:30 slot, we have TCU coming off a big win against Kansas, taking on Oklahoma State. Tom, who do you have winning this one?
As I mentioned before, TCU's winning. I mean, both teams are undefeated. Oklahoma State's running game is not great outside of Spencer Sanders. Cowboys have a good secondary, but are they going to be able to produce enough offensively to match what TCU has? I mentioned 530 yards a game earlier on the show for the Horned Frogs. Max Duggan's a little better than Sanders, in my opinion. I'm going to mention that again. Keep that in mind. With me, when I see 2 teams like this who are very close in the rankings, I go with 2 things. Who has the home field advantage and who has the better quarterback? I think TCU is the answer to both of those questions, which is why they're going to win this game.
All right, Andy?
Yeah, I agree with everything Tom said. I mean, Spencer Sanders has burned us on this podcast multiple times. So I hope we're not setting him up for another one of those. But, I mean, Duggan has just really, really found his groove these past couple weeks. TCU at home, they've got juice. They have a lot of momentum. I like them to take it. Horned Frogs by a touchdown.
Yeah, I wish I could, I tried to get back on the Spencer Sanders train a few weeks ago, or at least be nice to him. But after watching, I mean, for me, the game of the week to watch that I was prepping for last week was that TCU Kansas game. For the memes, because everyone's on the Kansas bandwagon. I think they still even are after that loss. I've seen a ton of support already for Jalen Daniels. Everyone hoping he comes back from that injury. So I had my eye on that game, and TCU just looks really good. And I agree. When you're in a kind of even matchup like this, even if it's not a quarterback, you need some sort of playmaker that can produce. And for them, it is Duggan. If this goes late, if Oklahoma State were to be down late, I guess is the way I'll put it, I don't trust them to be able to score and get back in the game. If TCU is down late in this game, I think that offense with TCU can, easily keep them in contention. Like you said, it's at TCU. You know, you get that home field advantage. I think they said it's going to be a sellout crowd. I may have read that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's sold out. So, yeah, for me, I think Duggan is just the missing piece of the puzzle to pick the winner here because Sanders has been impressive. I don't want to hate on 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So much more maturity than the previous years where we used to shit on him even more than we shat on him at the beginning of the season. But I just like TCU to win this game. I think they slightly edge out Oklahoma State here. Then moving into our late games, we have Utah taking on USC. Pac-12 has looked actually pretty good this year. Surprisingly, they got 4 teams kind of in contention here for the playoff. Tom, we'll start with you. Who's winning this one?
Each offense averages 40 points per game. Incredible. Utah's angry after their road loss to UCLA, as they should. I still love Cam Rising. I don't care what their record is. He's a great quarterback that's going to keep them in all the games that they play in this year. Tavion Thomas is a solid running back. Dalton Kincaid, 5 touchdowns from the tight end position. The Utes have 2 elite safeties in Hubert and Bishop. Caleb Williams, quarterback for the Trojans, is facing his biggest test of the season and potentially his career. 14 touchdowns to just 1 pick. Keep in mind, he's relied a lot on running back Travis Dye. 570 yards and 6 touchdowns. But keep in mind, he has 2 excellent wideouts in Jordan Addison and Mario Williams, who have combined for 10 touchdowns. Tuli Tuipulotu has 7 sacks on the season. He's been outstanding on that Trojan front line, and they have 3 players with at least 2 interceptions. And here's the juggernaut of this situation, Lincoln Riley. Got to go with the Trojans on the road.
All right, Andy.
I'm going to preface this with I will not be shocked if USC wins this game, but I said previously on this show, this very episode, that Utah was going to win, so I can't go back on that. I like what Tom said. I don't care what the record is. Cam Rising is Cam Rising. He has been, he can beat you with his feet. Excuse me. He can beat you with his arm. And a big thing for me is this game is in Utah. They just always seem to squeeze these type of games out against a higher ranked conference opponent at home. They're going to be pissed off from last week. They looked like shit against UCLA. I think they bounce back. I think they get a close win over USC here. Caleb Williams has been nothing short of impressive since his move over to Southern California. Obviously, them going out and getting Jordan Addison in the transfer portal has been huge for this offense. Like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if they win. I'm taking Utah. They need a bounce back. They need some momentum swinging their way to power them through the rest of the season. The Utes get it done at home.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I did pick them as my upset alert pick, so there's no going back now. But no, I despite the loss and giving up 1 billion points to UCLA last week, I think that was a one-off. Despite the fact that this USC offense is, I think, inarguably better than that UCLA offense that we saw last week. Thompson Robinson and Charbonnet are good, but this is, another level. This is like the final boss type of offense that Lincoln Riley has brought to Los Angeles. But yeah, Tommy mentioned him. Tuli Tuipulotu, 4 tackles for loss and 3 sacks last week. So Utah absolutely needs to contain this monster. I guess having Cam Rising is probably a bit of an advantage because if he does get past that D-line, Rising is good on his feet, like Andy said. Both teams' secondaries like to hunt here. USC leads the nation in interceptions with 12, and Utah not far behind with 10. And of those, both teams have returned 3 of those for touchdowns. It's not something we typically say about a USC defense, maybe since like the 2004 days, that the defense is just pulling off stat lines like that to be number 1 in the country with your secondary performance there. So tip of the hat to them. Utah been one of the most sound defenses in college football. Like I said last week, not great, but I think that's going to be a one-off. USC has been great with the ball absolutely everywhere. I don't think that's been a surprise to everyone. Caleb Williams, Looks a lot more mature than his time at Oklahoma. He was young, not digging into him there. And as a whole, the team only has one turnover, which was a Caleb Williams interception. Dye has not let the ball out of his hands all season long, so the stability is there. But listen, Utah's going to be very angry. They know they still have a chance. They're ranked number 7 at the start of the season, so they. I don't like a lot of the pollsters, but if that many of them were that high on Utah, obviously they're seeing something that people maybe didn't see at the beginning of the season, but are now starting to see despite that Utah loss. And I wasn't joking about that Utah air. Anyone that's been there or Colorado, you start sipping for breaths, especially in the late game when these guys are tired. I don't know if any of these guys, maybe Travis Dye, he transferred in from Oregon, so he might have some experience. But Caleb Williams is deep in Oklahoma. Mario Williams, I think is from California, if I remember that correctly. And Addison, I believe, is also from California. So it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be real tough for them. And I think if this is close late, I think Utah takes the game here. Moving into our 7:30 chaser, not many other exciting games. I think most people have Utah SC on, but we have Duke taking on UNC. It's not March Madness, folks. This is a 5-1 team going up against a 4-2 team. Typically basketball ranked teams now doing pretty well in football. Tom, who do you like here?
UNC's favored by 7. They're 5-1. Duke is 4-2. At quarterback for the Tar Heels, you have Drake May, who's thrown for 1,900 yards on the year, 21 touchdown passes through 6 games. That's very impressive. Just 3 interceptions. He also has over 300 rushing yards and 3 scores there. So if you do the math, that's 24 touchdowns in 6 games. He's scoring 4 touchdowns a game himself. Hampton, good running back for the Tar Heels. Josh Downs is still there. 5 touchdown receptions. Duke, again, I don't like to give out participation trophies, but they do own an 8-point loss against Kansas. That was a close game. Riley Leonard, again, he doesn't throw the ball much because they don't have to. They love to run. They have 3 players with at least 3 rushing touchdowns. Can the Tar Heels stop the run? I don't know, because the Tar Heels defense has been very sus all year long. And Duke is at home. Look, as funny as it might be, is it not true? I mean, look, hell, Notre Dame and Drew Pine went off on this team. So look, at the end of the day, I think UNC has the slightly better offense. Duke is at home. Crap. This is a coin flip game, even though it's a 7-point line. That line is there for a reason. I reluctantly picked the Tar Heels to win this game.
All right, Andy.
I'm going the Tar Heels here. Tom, I don't think I've ever heard you say sus. That was so great. That was awesome. I'm going with the Tar Heels solely because they're wearing the chrome Tar Heel helmets this week. That sells it for me. I think Drake May is the obvious better quarterback in this matchup as well. Tom, you are correct. When you're thinking about the North Carolina defense, just tell yourself they cannot stop shit. So there will be points scored in this game. I think North Carolina takes it, though. I'm going with the Tar Heels in this rivalry over Duke.
Yeah, I think the obvious winner here is going to be anyone who takes the over on points for this game at 67 and a half. But yeah, Drake May has been a really good replacement. Sam Howell, that's a big loss for UNC, but he's coming and he's done his job. So obviously he still does have Josh Downs to throw to, who's been a phenomenal wide receiver for them for the last couple of years. Duke has a problem here in the sense that they secure the ball on the ground really well, low on fumbles, but QB Riley Leonard has made some very errant throws, racking up 3 interceptions. It's a high-powered UNC offense, so if they get out to a big lead here, Duke's not going to be able to rely on that ball security on the ground. They're going to need to throw the ball, so that's going to put them into some compromising situations. They've got a 4-pronged rushing attack. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they have 4 people who have over 30 carries on the team, one being the quarterback Leonard, but that's for teams that don't run the triple option, that's kind of rare to see. So I thought that was interesting. But between May and Down and the respectable rushing offense of North Carolina, I'm not as concerned with, the defense allowing over 465 yards a game. We'll just sweep that under the rug a little bit. But yeah, I think we do see a shootout here. So it could go either way. But I think Tar Heels do have the slight edge in this game, in this rivalry matchup. So I'm going with the Tar Heels as well. That is going to wrap up our show for the week. Thank you to everyone for joining in. Links are down in the description. Hit that subscribe button. Andy and Tom's links are also down below. Enjoy the games, and we will see everyone next week.